Romans, not much is recorded about their beginnings, so they had to resort to myths. And you know the story, I'm not going to go into it. She-wolf raised the two brothers, Romulus and Remus. But the point is, here on the Italian peninsula, as cultures were settling, you can see the Greeks here, the Etruscans there, Latium is right here, and it's right here that the Romans, the city-state of Rome, was settling. And as the story goes, Romulus and Remus got in a fight. Romulus killed Remus over the fact that where they were going to build their city. And Romulus won out, and he started the city of Rome in the area of these 7 hills. He started the villages on the biggest hill, which is the Palatine Hill. And that's why Rome is always known as the city on 7 hills, because it's surrounded by these 7 hills. And you can see the one hill is a real large hill with 3 fingers or plateaus coming out for it. Those are considered 3 hills. So you have 7 hills, and you can see where the Forum is located and the Colosseum. But in the beginning, it was just these 7 hills. And this is a look at some of the buildings and Tiberius and Caligula and other emperors' palaces up on the Palatine Hill. And this shot is looking down from the hill on the Circus Maximus. It doesn't look like much, the Circus Maximus, but you know, it's pretty cool. You can imagine chariot races being run around that. This is just more sites on Palatine Hill. The buildings are the oldest in Rome, dating from 700 to 600 BC. So, pretty fascinating up on the hill. And this shot is looking from the Palatine Hill at the Roman Colosseum. So basically, the Palatine Hill here is an example of what was growing and the villages springing up on the 7 hills of Rome back in 753 BC. By 600 BC, the 7 hills all grew into one large city that was called Rome. And Rome was like any other city-state in that area. Now all these different cultures that took shape in the Italian peninsula, they were all basically from the same race, and they all shared a common language and a religion. But Rome's growth and influence was more determined by its neighbors across the Tiber, which was the Etruscans, who inhabited about a dozen city-states of their own. Now the city-state of Rome did have its beginnings in a republic or an oligarchy, but I prefer to call it a monarchy at this stage. However, it did have its wealthy landowners, which are this people on the left, the patricians, and they were distinct from the workers on the right, who were called plebeians. They did form a council, and to qualify it as a council member, their heritage had to be traced back through the history of Rome's families. The council voted on Roman matters, and the king, who was elected by this assembly, held most of the power. That's why I call it a monarchy. They called it the Comitia Curata. And there was 30 kinship-based groups, or curiae, which all arm-bearing men, patricians and plebeians alike, who could afford to arm themselves, would be allowed in this assembly, and they would vote on the affairs of the states. This curiae made the laws and ruled the villagers, which were the plebeians, who were too poor to afford any armor or weapons, and therefore they were not allowed to fight. Each kinship group voted separately on the state's matters, and that's how the city-state was run in the beginning here. Now, to wrap up our chapter 1, the founding, basically Rome in the beginning fought like every other Mediterranean city-state. They used a phalanx tactic system. And then around 600 BC, the Etruscans, you can see the map here, they start dominating the entire central Italian area. And they controlled Rome and dominated Rome for about the next century. And that takes us into chapter 2 of section 1. The reason I labeled chapter 2 of the Italian Peninsula, because I wanted to go over the topography of the peninsula, because there's just certain areas around the world that are hard to get to, or hard to attack, or hard for foreign armies to get to, like Egypt, for example. They have the Nile and the Sinai on one side and the Gobi Desert on the other, protecting them. So throughout its long history, it didn't get invaded by foreign armies very much, unless they came by sea. You know, I mean, it did happen, I'm not saying that, but didn't happen a lot throughout its history. Rather, like the Mesopotamia area, in contrast, it got invaded all the time. I mean, armies were rolling over that area constantly, left and right. Now here in Italy, look at Rome, where it's situated. It's protected by these 7 hills, and in their near future they built a wall around the city. And then to its north and its back there is the Tiber River. So it has these natural defenses going on, so it makes it a little difficult for armies, foreign armies, to come at it, unless you lived in the area. The city is set about 15 miles inland, and so pirates, marauders from the sea didn't attack it because it wasn't on the coast. And then small vessels could only travel on a Tiber, so it really is a good defensive position. Now, apart from that, when we look at the peninsula, look at the green area here. These are the green area here. The mountains going down the middle of Italy are the Apennine Mountains, and that divides the east and the west side of Italy. So that's a barrier you have to deal with. And then you can see how it goes up through the north there, and it connects to the Alpine Mountains. That's another barrier that armies have to cross to get into Italy. Now, apart from the mountain ranges, you had 3 main rivers in Italy that you had to traverse also. You have the Po River in the north, then you had the Arno River in the plains of Tuscany here on the west side of Italy, and then you had the Tiber River that ran north to south. So Rome in itself was in a pretty good defensive area from foreign invasions. Now Rome, very early on, had built these roads across the mountains. Now the mountains, all the mountain ranges, there's a lot of passes where you can just walk through, but to move a sizable army across, there were only a few spots. To go across the Apennines from Rome, you can see the blue road there. There's a little pass in the pink and the orange. The Romans learned very early on to build roads to get to where they had to get to very quick, and they connected themselves with the plains area of Italy. So in the Italian areas, because of the mountain ranges, the rivers, you would fight most of your battles coming out of the mountains, crossing the rivers. In the plains areas, for example, where Romans lived, you have the Latium Plains, where battles would be fought. Then where the Etruscans lived, you had the Etruscan Plains, battles would be fought. Up in the north, coming across the Alpine Mountains, if you were prepared, you can catch the enemy there in the Po Valley. That would be the Po Valley, the plains area there. Down more to the south, you had Apulia and Capua, those plains areas there. So these were a lot of where the Roman battles would be fought. And then lastly, when armies came into the Italian peninsula, they had to cross the Alps. You could see up here in the Po Valley region as they're coming out of the Alps. The blue line on the left would be a pass from France into Italy. That would be like the route that Hannibal took. That was like the St. Bernard Pass. And then on the right side, coming from Germany into Italy, that blue line, that would be like the Brenner Pass. So there was only a couple ways here to get through the Alps and into Italy with a huge army. And that brings us to chapter 3, our last chapter in section 1, the Etruscan Domination. Now, one thing I'm doing as we're going to go along with these videos is I'm putting up rules that the Romans followed in their long history, and they tried to keep to these rules, which helped their enduring civilization. And rule number 1 that they absolutely believed in and tried to adhere to was you do not allow a single man to have all the power. So I'll keep putting up these rules that the Romans lived by, and which may have led to their longevity. Now let's get back to the Etruscans and chapter 3 here. Now the Etruscans, you can see in the pink, they dominated this whole central area, Latium, and the city of Rome. From about 600 to 509 BC, 3 Etruscan kings ruled in Rome and sat on the Roman throne. And it wasn't like a tyrannical rule, a dictatorship. It was nothing like that. It was basically just a different dynasty ruling, and everybody got along swell. In fact, the Etruscans taught the Romans a lot of their stuff, especially what it was to be an aristocrat. Bathhouses, indoor plumbing, brothels, drainage systems, and then they taught them how to build the roads with the sewage system on the sides. They brought them the gladiatorial fights. They taught them how to use cement rather than just laying bricks like most civilizations, and cement was a lot stronger. So they really learned a lot from the Etruscans, and they got along fine. But what's remarkable is that even through all this, the Romans kept their own identity separate and their institutions separate. So they were able to keep their own identity apart from the Etruscans. So it was in 509, 510 BC where the patrician class, they finally got tired of the Etruscan monarchy, and they believed in rule number 1. They didn't want a single man. They've had enough of that, a single person ruling them. So Rome and other Latin cities revolted, and they threw the yoke of the Etruscans out. And this would start Rome now on their own path, I guess if you want to call it the path of domination, because they were not going to let anybody do this to them again. I think I'm going to stop it right here. We will start section 3 in the next video, and it will be about the Republic of Rome, and it's going to be a pretty long one because the Republic lasted fairly long. So we'll have another video up in a little while.